Hi everyone, this is Vienna calling. My name is Eleanor and welcome to ICC Austria Talks Trade Finance. I'm extremely delighted to welcome Knapna Ayrevi from Afreximbank and Isaac Mahanke from Standard Bank South Africa, who kindly agreed to share their African perspective on digitization, compliance, and sustainability, trade finance latest buzzwords. The session will be moderated by my dear friend Deepesh Patel from Trade Finance Global, our exclusive media partner. Deepesh, the screen is yours.
So now on to our final quickfire topic, sustainability. And Corbina, I'm going to start with you, and I think it's a fairly open-ended question because there are no right or wrong answers. But what, in your opinion, does sustainable trade finance mean to you, and why is it such a hot topic right now?
Yeah, thank you. It's always an interesting topic. For a continent that is reliant a lot at this point in time on primary agricultural produce, I think we need to appreciate what sustainability means for us. Because until we get to the point where a major part of our economies are transformed into a value-added point, we need to ensure we are protecting our environment. So for us, sustainability is very much understanding that the resources available to us are limited, and that in our pursuit for growth and development, we do not do so while sacrificing that future. However, having said that, I think it's also important to understand where the continent is, which is why sometimes there is that dilemma between going all out sustainability in terms of the things we do versus being pragmatic, right? Most of our countries are deficient in terms of access to energy, right? So when it comes to difficult decisions around, do you support the construction of a hydroelectric dam or not? It is not an easy decision to make, right? It's a very simple thing to say, no, we will not do it because the world frowns on hydroelectric power. But if that is a balance between thinking through the transformation of a whole country, right, then we will ensure that all the necessary safeguards are in place, and natural historic habitats are fully protected, indigenous people and their livelihoods are protected. We will invest in those mitigation actions to ensure that whilst development happens, it does so sustainably for our member countries.
Thank you very much. And Isaac, I'm going to ask you, I think it's a fairly difficult question, but the nature of trade or trade between countries is such that it promotes economies of scale, it brings down price, it increases competition and innovation. That's inherently unsustainable in its nature. So how can trade really be sustainable?
Oh, yeah, no, that is a very difficult question. Look, I think currently you're getting a lot of pressure, mainly from a lot of consumers as well as investors, which is also encouraging, meaning that they're able to put their money where their mouth is. So meaning that everyone else wants to source goods from a responsible production. So therefore, it's a journey that we need to embark on. It's not something that we can get there quickly, but however, with investors saying that they want to look at more green projects and they like to support such green sourcing of products or much more responsible products, I think it's a journey that we all need to take along and look at all the risks that Corbin has mentioned, that we cannot accelerate it and get to where the rest of the world is, because we still have certain challenges such as poverty, which is rampant among the continent. And then you also have certain industries that if you were to introduce an element of complete sustainability, it could eradicate their source of income, and that could probably counter what you're trying to achieve. So I think it's a journey that we need to embark on. It's not an easy one, but however, I do believe that trade is sustainable. If we define the framework to say we want to align to where everyone else is and join where Paris Agreement was signed around the sustainability. But however, it's a journey. We need to make sure that everyone else is brought along. We look at all the risks as well as all the opportunities that this sustainability will bring. If we have partners and investors that are willing to be patient and actually invest and make sure that where we are trying to support these primary industries where they rely primarily on agriculture, mining, as well as other forms of other forms of mineral resources. We need to try and see how do we support them now with a view that in future we need to try and protect the environment and try and protect our source of income at the same time. So it's a journey, it's a very difficult one, but I do believe that trade finance is sustainable in the long run. We just need to take baby steps in bringing everyone along and collaborate with one another and not necessarily jump 10 steps where we can leave everyone else behind.
Yeah, I think you've hit it in one there. It really is a business imperative. If you take a medium to long-term view, why would one want to finance the production of a mine when you take into account the implication that has on the people, the resources over, let's say, a 5, a 10, or a 20-year time span? And I think Corbina, yourself at Afreximbank, and especially on some of the larger projects and infrastructure deals, you'll be taking things like that into consideration, right?
Oh yes, that's front and center of what we do. It's an area that we are resourcing ourselves up. It's a core part of every single credit decision that we make. So you might call it a mundane trade finance transaction. We will go through a sustainability assessment. We will identify the risks. We will ensure it is appropriately mitigated before it goes through our credit decisioning process. But always having that balance between where we need to get to as a continent, but protecting the future of our continent.
Thank you very much. And Corbina, lots of people talk about the E in ESG, and actually I think we forget about the societal, the S, and the governance G. Why is this so, and what are the important considerations when you think about the S and the G?
I think it gives a very holistic framework, okay? And that which, because you cannot just talk about sustainability on its own. We're talking about the whole development of a people, of a continent, and their growth, their aspirations, etc. So I think it's important always to take a holistic view. So whilst I might have referenced sustainability and the environmental impact assessments that we do in terms of our assessment, actually, one of the key part of our decision-making process is impact. Okay, so we do a holistic impact on every single transaction that we do. So for $1 that we put into this transaction, into this project, what is it doing holistically? How many jobs are we creating? What is our impact on the GDP of the country? So it's always important for us to take that holistic view of every single intervention that we do on the continent.
Thank you very much. And thank you for disclosing that. I think it's really important for our audience to understand that these impact assessments really do look beyond the immediate ROI per dollar invested. Isaac, I'm going to ask you a question. And I guess given the short-term self-liquidating nature and the short-termness of trade finance, can we really price sustainable trade finance in a way that works for Standard Bank, say?
Look, I think we can. I think what has been missing is data points to help us guide and look at the impact that, as Kwabena has mentioned, around both social as well as corporate governance, as well as sustainability of the environment. But I think some of the governments have started certain initiatives as well as certain incentives to say, such as carbon tax. That gives us a view or gives us data points for us to be able to see how do we price some of the loans or some of the trade finance loans that we provide at the back of these export and import transactions, to look at things such as if they do impact the environment negatively, or how do we try and promote the guys to be more socially responsible and try and provide a rebate within that. So I think there's not really a lot of data available, but however, there are some data points that are coming up in different areas. I think the collation of that will help us or guide us to start pricing these appropriately. I think we can price these. I believe we can price these. We just need the data points. The data points are there, but however, we need to surface the data for everyone else to be able to evaluate and make an informed decision. So I think we can, with the guidance, I think some of the governments have jumped ahead and they give us that comfort to say, look, if you try and promote sustainable trade, these are some of the benefits or incentives that you could get. So that does provide us input into our pricing models, where we can probably even provide such incentive for some of our customers that are trying to either import from a responsible country or responsible importers or source responsible goods.
Thank you very much. And I guess, Standard Bank, like many, are on this journey and this road towards sustainable trade finance. And there are a lot of hurdles and pillars, from definitions to regulations to pricing and incentives to good data and good information that can provide the insights on all of the rest. So both of you, thank you very much for those kind of 3 spotlight sessions in and around trade and trade finance. And I want to ask one concluding question, just summarizing on those 3 topics of digitalization, compliance and risk, and sustainability. I'm going to ask you to give a short, a medium and a long-term view on what your banks need to prioritize on when it comes to kind of moving forwards, accelerating trade digitization, sustainability, alongside all of the hurdles, challenges, and potentially opportunities. So what's your short-term priority, medium-term priority, and long-term priority? Who wants to go first?
Kwabena, do you want to go first?
No, I'm happy to do that. I'm happy to do that.
Please.
So, I mean, just to give you a context of how we go about things in Afrexim Bank, we run what we call 5-year strategic planning cycles, right? And we are in the final year of our current strategic plan. And in that plan, our priorities were around promoting intra-African trade, industrialization and export development, trade finance leadership. So those were key pillars that we focused on. And in that journey, we've sort of laid the foundation, right? In terms of, number one, creating the enabling environment for access to information, creating seamless payment gateways. We now have our Pan-African payments and settlement system where people can buy and sell in their local currencies cross-border. So we've done all of those elements. As we move into the next plan, it's very much using those building blocks to drive industrialization and drive growth in intra-African trade. For us, the key long-term benefit is where the majority of trade in Africa is amongst us as member countries. That's the long-term goal and the reason why this bank was set up. To do so means we need to provide that industrial capacity in the different countries to ensure that we are benefit from advantages that are inherent across the continent, that we are producing things that we ourselves want to consume. So yes, the long-term vision for us is an Africa that relies very much on itself, still an integral part of the world trade economy, but with intra-African trade driven by the AfCFTA as the foundation of how Africa trades.
Yeah. Okay. I think from my side, if I look at our strategic view as Standard Bank, so our motto is that Africa is our home and we drive her growth. So we believe utilizing tools such as digitization will help us grow the continent, as well as promote some of the ecosystem. So we believe in banking the entire value chain as well as the ecosystem, collaborate with a number of stakeholders to try and ensure that we don't leave anyone behind. We bring Africa to the world as well as the world to Africa. In saying that, we believe that partnering with the likes of Afreximbank as well as other multinational will help us promote trade across the continent. We are participating in the Africa Trade Agreement, whereby we're trying to see how do we champion some of the initiatives to ensure that the continent is sustainable, as well as it can promote intercontinental trade among itself and help SMEs grow and help the continent produce and secure and eradicate poverty. So our long-term strategy is to become an African bank that is for Africa and also promote trade across Africa. Digitization will involve a number of projects and initiatives whereby we're trying to either partner with fintechs or any other experts to help us ensure that we are collaborating and are engaged with the customer on the ground, and not solely just pushing Standard Bank products to the customer, but understand and hear the voice of the customer and understand what that need is. And then with that, we go internally and assess to say, how do we partner with everyone else to help the continent grow, to ensure that the continent is sustainable in future, and ensure that we are quite responsible, ensuring that we're investing in the best technology to ensure that transparency as well as financial crimes are either reduced on the ground, ensure that we partner with regulators and collaborate with them to ensure that all the rules and regulations that are much more friendlier to trading on the African continent. I think that's at a high level that I can put it at.
Thank you very much, Kwabena and Isaac, for your absolutely inspirational and informative views, and what an excellent panel session for all of our viewers. I'm sure people will be taking lots back home and back to the table and back to decision making. It's been an absolute pleasure having you, and on behalf of both Trade Finance Global and also ICC Austria's Trade Finance Week, huge thank you for joining us on the show.
Thank you, Deepesh. Thank you to ICC. Good to meet you, Kwabena.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure.